talking about the NFL dominating. We started with the NFL, we went to the college. We're going to go right back to the NFL in segment 3. I'm going to call this silly season because right now, camp's coming to an end. Teams are making cuts. They're getting ready for their openers next week. And there's just a lot of talk going on right now, Cedric. One thing, we've talked about Antonio Brown because, let's face it, he's interesting. And now he's tweeting about never being friends with Ben Roethlisberger. What in the world is going on with this guy?
Man, just let it go and there's no reason. I know Big Ben had an interview with Michelle Tafoya and he's talking about being friends with Antonio Brown. Well, a few years back on National Best Friends Day, someone asked him who his best friend was, and he said Big Ben Roethlisberger. So stop it with that nonsense, Antonio Brown. I mean, they talk about him needing a new helmet. Has he been running into a brick wall without a helmet? Does he have a screw loose? I know Ben Roethlisberger is probably not the easiest guy to get along with, but guess what? You don't play in Pittsburgh anymore. You guys are no longer teammates. Leave it alone. Try to figure out how to make it work with Derek Carr in your second phase of your career, and leave the Big Ben stuff in Pittsburgh. I just thought it was a little petty. I understand that there was definitely some friction near the end of his tenure at Pittsburgh, but real pros move on and get good things going in their new vocation. Antonio Brown is now the star receiver of the Oakland, soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders. Let it go. Be a pro. Go do your job. Take care of those bunions and those blisters on the bottom of your feet, and let Big Ben do his thing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's so, I think it's one thing if you get asked a question and, you might, saying something like we were never friends, I don't know if that's good, especially if it's not true, but just to go out on Twitter, unprompted and say this, yeah, I think Antonio Brown right now, I know there's a lot of consternation amongst Raiders personnel, is this guy gonna be as good as we think he can be? Because all this stuff going on the side is just such a hassle right now. I mean, he needs to have a fantastic year to make sure people aren't saying, you remember in the offseason when all this started? Well, it continued on into the year because this guy isn't nearly the player we thought he was going to be. He's going to have to be really, really good for the Raiders, for people in that fan base, and frankly, across the NFL, not to say, man, this guy is not worth the hassle. I think he is that talented, but you're really putting yourself under the gun with all of this outside stuff. And I think that's really, he's doing it to himself in a lot of ways. So he's going to have to really be mindful of that going into the season. One other thing, again, the topic that never seems to go away, the kerfuffle surrounding.
Wow, say that again.
Kerfuffle surrounding Zeke
it.
Elliott, Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys. Now Jerry Jones is saying he potentially just wants to make sure Zeke is fresh for the playoffs, and that's motivation behind this the holdout that doesn't seem to ever want to end. The soap opera that is the Dallas Cowboys. Is Zeke Elliott going to play in the Dallas Cowboys opener, Cedric?
I think so. I may be dumb, but I really think he will. I think he's going to sign either this week or early next week, and he's going to be in the lineup for the New York Giants game. They sent Marshall Faulk down to Cabo to make sure that Zeke keeps it on the level, and they're working out together apparently. But I really think that he's going to be there. Jerry is the gift that keeps on giving. You're talking about getting him fresh for the playoffs? Playoffs? You're talking about playoffs? You got to win some games first before you can talk about the playoffs, Jerry.
Yeah.
Quit assuming that you're going to go 10-6, 11-5. Tony Pollard is not a proven running back. I don't care what he did in the preseason. He's not Ezekiel Elliott. I know that much. So I think Jerry's painting himself into a corner, and it's getting to the point where every time Jerry says something, I could just see Stephen Jones just going, "Oh my God, Dad, just quit talking. Please quit talking."
Well, it's interesting. I'm sort of thinking, as this has gone on, it has sort of made me think about Mark Cuban a little bit, one of the other professional sports owners down there in Dallas, the Mavericks owner, obviously, a billionaire. You know, when the Mavericks were really bad, I mean, it's hard to remember those days now because they had Dirk and championships and all the things that happened there. But when they were really bad, you know, Mark Cuban became the story. He would say stuff, he would do stuff, and it would get attention for the Mavericks. And, you know, I don't think the Cowboys are hurting for attention, but it's almost like, you know, while they're figuring all this out, Jerry Jones, whether he's doing it on purpose or not, Cedric, he's stepping out there and becoming the story. And, you know, maybe he feels like there's all these other stories going on in the NFL and he wants to make sure his guys, his team, his franchise is still getting, you know, headlines, getting talked about on the track or on the bottom of whatever sports show you're watching. I don't know. But he is definitely keeping the Cowboys in the conversation as all of this. I mean, really, this is boring. This is about agents and front office people meeting and looking at contracts and talking about, you know, minutia ultimately. But he's making it exciting with all of this stuff. Cedric, I mean, I didn't know contract negotiations could be so interesting.
One thing I love about Jerry Jones is he doesn't mind being a topic of conversation.
Nope.
He speaks his mind, and I think any press is good press as far as he's concerned. Outside of Michael Irvin in a mink coat in court, Zeke in Cabo and Jerry building super yachts and saying Zeke who and all of that, that gets the cameras clicking, that gets people like us writing, and it gets the fans talking. And Jerry Jones is in his element when the Dallas Cowboys are moving the needle. And I think this is fine. He's going to give Zeke his money. I think Zeke will play against the Giants. And if you're drafting your fantasy league this weekend, don't be afraid to take Zeke. He's going to be in the lineup.
Well, the silly season may continue a little bit longer in the NFL, but it is game week. So next week on the Writer's Block, we're going to actually have actual, real, live football to talk about. So prepare yourself. I'm ready. Cedric's ready. Be sure to come back next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you then.